Stefanie, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Let's Talk Film, a series where contemporary women get a chance to have their voices heard on the latest film releases. Today's film we'll be reviewing is a heartfelt documentary, Bully, co-written by Cynthia Lowen and Lee Hirsch, directed by Lee Hirsch. I'm sitting inside the cafe of sustainable coffee company 40 Waits, which in the evening hours transforms into the popular Sweet Wolf's restaurant. It's located on the corner of 6th Avenue between 12th and 13th Streets in Park Slope, Brooklyn. This is ranked as one of the most desirable neighborhoods in New York City due to its quality housing and public schools, green space, and safety, with the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, Prospect Park, and the Brooklyn Museum all within close proximity. International cultural events of all kind can be found here year-round. But for now, let's sit down and enjoy a cup of their amazing Java.
40 Waits Cafe is our flagship locale for my roasting company that I own with my best friend and partner, Roastmaster Andrew Ballard. This is like I said, our flagship locale where we own and operate and serve our own coffee. So we import coffee from the three major regions, Latin America, East Africa, and the Pacific Rim. So we make a concerted effort to source coffee beans from small farms or small producers, what they call micro lots, for a variety of reasons. The quality is higher. There's a lot more care taken of the bean and actually of the environment as well.
I know that you have a schedule here. It's 40 Waits Cafe during the day, select times of the week, and then at night it's Sweet Wolf. So can you tell me a little bit about that cooperative?
We operate, like I said, 7 o'clock we open the store. At noon, Sweet Wolf starts to kick up lunch. So we have a crossover of service. So we have simultaneous service. You can get coffee and you can get a great lunch. And then at 3:30, we end service, break down by 4 o'clock, and the bar is ready for dinner and for beer and wine. You showed me a very special way you have of brewing your coffee. Can you please just share with our audience how exactly you brew your coffee? It's called a pour-over. It's pretty simple. It's deceptively simple. It's freshly ground coffee, made to order. It's dosed for 1 cup, 1 serving. You can choose usually from 3 options. Usually we try to have 1 representative of each of the 3 regions we talked about. If you order any one of those, we have the whole beans already pre-dosed out. I crack it open, filter, grind it right into the filter, into our pour-over bar, and you just take a stream of hot water and manually extract it. It takes about 3.5 to 4 minutes, and you have the freshest cup of coffee possible.
Now, last question. How do you recommend drinking the coffee?
Because we go through such great lengths to source the coffee, roast the coffee, and prepare it to be able to actually taste the actual coffee bean. So with that said, obviously the best way to drink it is black. So I always recommend letting it sit and cool for about 2-3 minutes. On top of that, if you want to add milk and sugar, that's completely fine. But I think it's always best to have a few sips beforehand. And we actually have about 20 to 25 people we've already converted from milk and sugar drinkers to drinking it black because of the way we make it.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for taking this time with me.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Me too.
And now let's meet our panelists. All the way to our right, we have Helene Abrams. Helene is a filmmaker, producer, director, actress, currently working on 2 films, I'm a Person, The Song That Changed the World, and The Plot to Heal the World. We have Amanda Adams Louis, born in U.S. but reared in Latin America, Europe, Africa. Amanda is a photographer, teaching artist, and hip-hopographer. Closing out our panel, we have Deborah Kirschner. Deborah is a writer, director, best known for her indie feature film, The Toll Booth, starring Marla Sokoloff and Tova Feldsha. Today's film we'll be reviewing is the heartfelt documentary Bully, co-written by Cynthia Lowen and Lee Hirsch, directed by Lee Hirsch. So ladies, Lee Hirsch says this film has always been in his mind because as someone who had been bullied himself, it was a topic that was very dear to his heart. Do you think this film was more of a PSA or a documentary? Deborah?
Maybe both. I mean, it was certainly a documentary in the sense that it was honestly portraying people in real moments of life, and sort of letting the story unfold, I think, as good documentary films do. But at the same time, it certainly had a call to action at the end, and yeah, so I think it was some kind of hybrid because it brought a very real problem to life by showing very real footage, but then it has a call to action with a website and with a very specific point of view.
I thought of it as an extended feature-length film type PSA that advocated for people to be more aware of, do something about, organize, rally around bullying in schools, and also looking at the school system in the U.S. So I think it was an advocacy piece more than it was just a straight documentary film telling us about a particular place, person, event, or issue.
Well, I think it was both. I think, Deborah, I like what you said about a hybrid, because I think that it's important to have a call to action so that people can see, something that they can do. And it certainly was heartfelt and did touch a lot of people's heartstrings.
Now, Deborah, you went to Q&A with Lee Hirsch as well as Cynthia Lowen, the producer and co-writer. Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was and what you learned through the Q&A?
It was a really great and very dynamic Q&A. There were a lot of teachers in the audience because the UFT was also present. And I specifically asked the director how he got such honest performances, because I felt one of the hugest strengths of this film to me was that it seemed like everybody was so unconscious of the camera. They weren't mugging to the camera. They didn't seem to be censoring themselves, it just seemed like some real honest things were happening. So I said that to the director and asked how he did it. And what I thought was interesting were he answered in a few ways. One, he said they were at the school for a really long time gathering the footage, so that in the first month they were there, everyone was so conscious of them, but then eventually the novelty wore off, so I think they got most of their really good footage later on in their shoot. And he also told me they were using a very small camera that almost looked like a still photography camera. And so he said that he thought a lot of the time people thought they were actually taking still photographs when they were actually filming.
Taking video.
And then the most interesting thing that he said was that he was making an effort to not look at the kids and the parents and everybody as subjects, but rather as partners, and that he had them involved in the production meetings, and they were very, I was really surprised by that, and I thought that was so interesting, and they were very aware of what was happening with the film and what they were trying to do, and very involved, which I thought was really unique and interesting.
This film was shot on the very popular DSLR Canon 5D Mark II. What were some of your thoughts on the technical aspects of the film, like the cinematography?
I thought the cinematography was amazing. I didn't even know it was shot on a 5D. I really thought it was shot by multiple large cameras, the typical movie cameras. I'm a photographer, so I'm not good with the names of the cameras, but I really couldn't even tell the equipment that was used to shoot it. It was one of the, I'd say, best shot films I've seen in a very long time.
Helene?
I felt that it was a very intimate experience, and what you had said about the director mentioning that a smaller camera is less...
it's more discreet.
It's more discreet,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I found that for myself, too, when I've used a very small camera. People don't even think that you're doing anything very important, so they get comfortable faster.
What were some of your thoughts on the editing and pacing of this film?
Well, I like parallel cutting, that they were using, and I felt that it was they did a really good job.
Yeah, it's two female editors. I forget what their names are now, but I think one's anyway. But yes, it was a team.
It was a team.
A couple.
I loved the vignetting technique and the different stories. I thought the pacing was natural, and it kind of drew me into the story in the way that they kind of had the build-up, breakdown. The editing was seamless. I didn't really notice it.
I think the pacing was really was very natural, and I think, for the most part, going from story to story was really pretty seamless. Every once in a while, I would take a minute to go, oh, now we're focused on this story. So every once in a while, I thought there was a confusing jump from one town to the next.
Yeah.
But other than that, like as far as like the intimate details of every story, I thought the pacing and the editing was great.
Did you see a social correlation between the issue of bullying and the violence seen in popular reality shows such as Bad Girls and Jersey Shore, and so many others where violence is encouraged?
I actually noticed a reverberation of the language that I hear in those shows and the kind of abusive language the kids were using when they spoke with each other. Like when the kids were waiting on the bus and the things he said to him, I'm not going to repeat it because
no,
it's just not necessary. But I heard a lot of reverberations in the language, and I also think that greater than our media, it's also something it's an American, how do I put it? A lot of what I saw in that from bullying also comes from the way that we teach our kids to stand up for themselves and to kind of deal with power. So power in an elementary or middle school setting, who is physically bigger, who is smarter, who has, I don't know, the clothes or the social and cultural capital that kind of gives them power before a group of people. And I say this because as someone that did go to school outside of this country with people that were not American, there was bullying and there is bullying in other countries, but you don't hear the epidemic problems in the way that it happens in the U.S. You don't hear about the cyberbullying and, let's say, teenage girls in China hanging themselves. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't, that it doesn't happen, but you don't hear the sheer rate of it.
Yeah, that was my question. I mean, not to go off on another topic, but is it because it's underreported? Because I'm sure it exists. But do you think it's because here it's reported more versus elsewhere? Or?
I think it's also kind of a little bit of an element of American culture that perpetuates it, and our fascination with power and the way that we look up to and put power on a pedestal.
Helen?
Wow.
I know, how to follow that up. I'm like,
Gosh, how do you sum that up? I think that the thing that's that I notice more than anything is that the children, the youth, are replicating what they see, how they've been treated.
Yes.
You know, they're learning from their parents first.
Yes.
They're learning from, you know, and their parents may be watching those reality shows even more than the kids. But when a father's beating up on a wife,
mother,
on a mother, or an older brother sibling is beating up on the younger sibling, or they're, you know, or even the father's beating up on the child.
Yeah.
You know, they're learning these. This is learned. You know, a lot has to do with the environment.
Yes.
So the situation with bullying is so massive. I mean, it's so huge.
It's true. And I'm sorry not to cut you off, but I just want to say, you know, while I was watching this, a thought had popped into my head: the music. You know, everyone always, you know, whenever a major rap album would come out, particularly in the 90s, they would say, how is this going to affect young people? Who's really being affected by this, that, and the third? But for some reason, when I was watching that film, I felt like the violence in the language and just the violence toward another human being, another child, was beyond any song. It was beyond any media. It was just beyond.
We have a song that has been used as a school song for the last 7 years in one of the schools, in elementary schools in the South Bronx. And the principal heard the song 7 years ago and made it their school song. And what he says is that this song gives the kids a lifeline.
Is it I Can by Nas?
I'm a Person is the song.
Oh, sorry.
I'm a Person. And which my partner wrote.
Different story altogether, sorry.
Anyway, so what he says is that it's a lifeline because who is telling these kids that they're a person at home? Mm-hmm. You know, this is in a really violent neighborhood where lots of them are live in shelters or live in the projects, and there's no parent around. Nobody's giving them positive messages. So by them singing it, it really influences the way they think of themselves and gives them something, you know, to hold on to.
It's so hard because there are a bunch of different contributing factors that can lead to bullying. In your opinion, what is the primary intent of this documentary?
I think it's to get people talking about it like this is something that has to change, not something that's just normal child behavior, but something that we actually, as I said before, can evolve past.
I think it's to educate, to spread awareness, and I think it's also an advocacy piece for the organization's, I forgot the name.
I think
terrible
Stand Up.
Names and details. Stand Up, but I think it was an advocacy piece for the the anti-bullying organization that
Yes.
the kids' parents founded at the end. So I think it had multiple purposes.
Okay. Helen?
I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's something where we have to say this is no longer acceptable.
Yes.
You know, we may have known that it took place some time ago also.
Yes.
But now, this is ridiculous. You know, how can we stand by as this continues to happen? We can't.
You know, what I think this film did on a very basic elementary level was to give us a very clear definition of what bullying looks like and what it is. Because we've heard of it and we've heard the word thrown around before and we've had ideas of what it may look like. And you know, we had ideas of what it may look like. But I think this kind of helps to drive it home in a way that maybe people didn't experience before. But ladies, unfortunately, we're out of time this afternoon. I want to thank you so much for your fascinating comments and thoughts on the film. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
No problem.
Yeah.
I just.
Coffee?
Oh,
Yeah.
indeed, right? And on that note, I want to thank Matt Marks for allowing us to shoot here at 40 Waits Cafe and Sweet Wolves in Brooklyn. Again, this has been a review of the heartfelt documentary Bully, co-written by Cynthia Lowen and Lee Hirsch, directed by Lee Hirsch. For this episode and more, you can check us out at www.letstalkfilmdotcom, which is also available on your mobile device. Until next time, I'm your host, Stefanie Alleyne. Keep watching and keep talking film.